All right, good morning, y'all. Good morning. We're gonna, just before we get started, just wanna welcome everyone to the merit pay, discretionary incentive stipends and performance reviews, overview and training. Brandon is going to just kind of help us with time, but also we're gonna ask that if you have questions throughout this training, I want you to be able to just kind of write down your questions or drop it into the chat. We're gonna reserve all the questions towards the end, because more than likely, if you do have a question midway through, it may be answered throughout this whole presentation. So so Brandon's gonna keep track of the chat room. Just feel free to drop those questions. We'll pause at the end and then answer all of them. Sound good? Awesome. All right. All right, so what is merit pay? I think this may be our very first actual training on merit pay, if I'm not mistaken. Lynch, help.
10 years in,
So this is the first official training. So I asked that folks just be, flexible, right? And noting that a lot of things we're doing for the first time and we're implementing, right? And so we're not going to be 100% perfect. And so we ask that, any questions that you have, again, reserve it till the end. I would say our team has been more than flexible and just accommodating and adjusting things as they get rolled out. We want to make sure that we hear all of your voices and also take into consideration any feedback that you might have. Let us be able to roll this out first, and then we'll be able to make any modifications or even clarifications as needed. So what is merit pay? So, or otherwise known as our team member compensation program. It's used to reward successful performance. Okay, so merit increases will be awarded to employees who consistently meet and exceed performance standards. Increases will not be granted to team members whose performance has been rated as unsatisfactory overall. Okay. Each year, the CFAO, which is Candace, CEO Lynch, and COO Casper, will determine a pool of merit increase funds that are available for the year. Okay, and both the objectives of the team member compensation program and financial resources available are factored in the decision-making process. Okay. One thing that we're also going to be rolling out in this next fiscal year is that every May, both the CFAO, CEO, and COO will analyze sort of overall organizational growth to determine if there's additional pool of funds that may be allocated to a one-time discretionary incentive stipend. Okay, this program is intended to retain, motivate, and reward high-performing employees. All right, let's talk about eligibility. So to be eligible for a merit increase, a team member must be employed at least 12 months of continuous service before the merit award date. So 1 year of employment, okay? Merit increases are effective the following fiscal year during Q1. We are approaching Q1 of this upcoming fiscal year, which will take place between August and September. This is when you can anticipate, if you have been approved for a merit increase, it will be in effect by then. And then another time of the year will be in Q3, which is between March and April. Okay, so there are 2 times throughout the year where folks are eligible to receive a merit increase, and I'll explain why in just a few. A team member whose pay is at the maximum of their salary range may not be granted an increase that would cause the base salary to exceed the maximum of the range for that position. Okay. And then discretionary incentive stipend. This is subject to basically our financial resources. Again, it's a one-time discretionary incentive stipend. The only eligibility requirement here is that you had to have been with IYT for at least 6 months. And these typically will be determined in Q4, end of year of the fiscal year. Again, it's contingent on the availability of financial resources. So I know there's going to be questions just around, okay, so where does that put me, right? So for the 21-22 fiscal year, those that began before August 30th, 2021 and have a complete end of year performance review will be eligible for the merit increase in August and September. Okay, so many of us may have came on board with the cohort. And so a lot of us nicely sort of kind of fit that 1 year or approaching that 1 year, actually coming up by the end of, most of us by the end of July. But you had to have started before August 30th. And so the timeline that I'm going to present to you all really is going to be applicable to this group that is approaching their 1 year. For those that began after August 30th, 2021, they will be eligible for a merit increase in March and April, and it will be retroactive. Okay, just want to make a discernment, okay? Merit increase, that timeline looks very different from an actual performance review because a performance review is really going to mirror your start date. So everyone is sort of on a different track in terms of when they'll get their mid-year and their end of the year. It just so happens that when we make the decision, right, in terms of the merit increase, it will only take place either during that August-September timeframe and or March and April. It will be retroactive. All right, so how do we determine determination of a merit increase? So just in accordance with IYT guidelines, supervisor or team leads will recommend whether a team member should receive any merit increase based on their annual performance review, and B, the amount of increase appropriate for the performance results. The team member's performance as reported. So here are some of the factors that team leads should be taking into factor. Team members' performance as reported in the annual performance review, the appropriate pay level within the range for the team member, considering the team member's performance and performance of others in the range, pay increase funds available, and then again, the recommendations of direct team lead as approved by CFAO. So review of merit pay increase. So merit increases do require the recommendation of the team member's immediate team lead and will be approved by the CFAO. So Candace will have sort of final write-off on those. Team members are to be notified of their merit increase as soon as possible after all team member merit increases for the year have been approved. Okay, so I'm going to transition to performance reviews, and then I'm also going to just talk about just sort of what our rating and our rubric in which we'll use to determine, what folks are eligible for. So team member performance, there's going to be 2 points of the year where team members will be evaluated for performance, and that's a mid-year review and the end of year review. Again, the focus of these reviews are to discuss your team members' performance for the rating period, review standards for the position, provide constructive feedback, and set goals for the next rating period. Now, this does not mention, you should be having regular one-on-ones, right, with your team members. You should be on a regular basis providing feedback, using your performance review as your guiding metrics, right, to improving performance. Okay, it just happens that just those 2 times of the year will be sort of a formal assessment, which will be documented, right, and filed with HR. In the end of the year review, the goal is for the team lead to communicate the team members' overall performance and merit pay increase amount if eligible. All right, so I'm gonna actually pause right here before I go over the timeline. Are there any questions, Brandon, in the chat? I'll actually open it up to this group right now before I move on. Are there any questions thus far?
Questions?
Yes,
Have we rolled out salary ranges for each position? Have we rolled those out? Salary ranges?
rolled out.
Yeah, so like, are they in Bamboo HR? So for like a program manager or director, do they know their range outside of what was on?
No,
the
we
job?
haven't. No, we haven't.
And are we going away from like the quarterly Bamboo reviews that we were doing?
I'm gonna explain that later on in this presentation, yeah.
What's the timeline to roll out salary ranges for like each position?
We can do that. We can do that as soon as early next week. Yeah. And if you mind making a note there, yeah,
Sydney had a question.
yes.
Well, her hand's actually raised. Sydney, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry, I was putting my questions in the chat. So at least for me, both of my team members started before me, and so I'm not sure what their ranges are. And so will we be notified of what the appropriate ranges are for each position for our team members?
Yes.
Okay, and then also when will we be notified of what our availability of funds is for merit increases? Because you
As
had
far-
noted, like how much, what the dollar amount is that I can spend for my team? Like, when will we be notified what we can increase if they're not at the max and they have, like, their performance dictates a raise?
So the reviews are gonna be based off of the percentage, the increased percentage. As far as the funding available, that's gonna be determined by finance. So it's just basic math on the finance part. So you're gonna determine the percentage.
Oh,
based off
got it.
of- Yeah, so it just really depends on the salary range for that position.
Okay.
You can get folks like the pool of money available, right?
Yes, she's gonna cover it here in this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Noah also asked if we could go over the max salary range part of the merit pay increase section.
Yeah,
So
what's
I
the
believe-
question?
I believe it was just wondering if we could go over it again. Noah, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, you don't have to go over it again. Because just with time, but maybe we'll have access to the slide deck or something so we can reread it. You went through that a little fast, so it's difficult to capture everything.
Yeah, so those that are at the max of their salary may not be granted a merit increase just because you are at the max of that salary range, the base salary range. Yeah, and we can work one-on-one, Noah, like, I know that folks, there may be specific individuals that may have more questions about that. Me and Candace are more than happy to work with you one-on-one on that.
And then
Thank
did
you both.
Do you want your second question as well, Noah?
Yeah, that's more of a question, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. All right, so right here, there's the timeline. It's really important to follow in order for merit increases to take effect by July 30th, 2022, especially for those that are approaching their 1-year anniversary. So this pertains to employees that have started before August 30th, 2021. We will take the same process for all those that started afterwards. So we probably will have a sort of refresher, right, when the time comes for those that this may not be applicable right now. Please work with your team and your team lead to be flexible in meeting these deadlines. So this is over the next 30 days, we are rolling out sort of phases of ensuring that performance reviews, end of year performance reviews are finalized so that merit increases can take place. HR will be notifying team leads and team members when they're approaching their end of year anniversaries on an annual basis. So just an FYI. So that's something that our HR team is going to do so that we can kind of give you a little bit more detailed timeline in terms of when you should be doing your mid-year and your end of year so that folks can meet that August, September, and or March, April merit increase opportunity. All right. So here's phase one. Team members, we're gonna be sending out a notification by the end of today for all team members to start doing their self-reviews. Team leads will be set up, will need to set up a time with your team members to discuss the process for end of year review and merit increase. Team leads should reference this PowerPoint. Charles, do you have a question?
No, I'm just.
Okay, yeah. Team leads will review the updated performance review template with their direct reports no later than Friday, July 8th, and work with the individual to transfer goals to the updated template. So see slide 15. I know that folks have been using Bamboo HR. Unfortunately, Bamboo HR does not meet, right, sort of the structure in which we need, which we are required in order to ensure that merit increases are finalized. Okay, so I'm gonna go over that template at the very tail end of this presentation. And it really should not take a whole lot of your time. Really, it is just copying and pasting all that you've just discussed with your team member into this template and making sure that we have a mid-year and end of year reflection in order to make approvals, right? In order to make, to finalize approvals for those reviews. HR will notify all team members of end of year reviews by June 29th, by today. That notification will include the deadline to complete the final self-review and to submit to their team lead no later than Friday, July 8th. Again, this is pertaining to folks that are approaching their 1 year. I know that some of you have team members that aren't at their 1 year, okay? Phase two, so this is the team lead review and recommendation. This takes place from July 9th to July 16th. Team leads by then should have received completed self-reviews by next Friday. And then you will begin to do your final review. Okay, and this is where you'll be able to review and then also provide an overall recommendation for that merit increase. Team leads will upload their performance review to this form. Again, you all will have access to the slide deck to be able to do that. Do not send it to the HR and improveyourtomorrow.org email, please. Otherwise, it will get lost in a sea of emails. So please upload it to this monday.com form. Here's phase three of the process. So approval of recommendations from July 17th to July 20th. Myself and Candace will be reviewing all the submitted end of year performance reviews. And then we'll be approving them. And then you as team lead should be getting notifications of that approval no later than Thursday, July 21st via email. And then phase four is then conducting the final performance review, which would take place this last week of July. So from July 21st to July 29th, upon notification, team leads will conduct a final review with each of their team members, inform them of their merit increase if applicable during this week. At that time, you also let them know that their merit increase will be effective July 30th, 2022, and will show up in their August 19th paycheck. Okay. The final leg of this, in order for that merit increase to take effect, is that team members and their team leads will be required to sign off on that final review, okay, with the approved merit increase. And so what's going to happen is that HR is going to upload your final review to Bamboo HR, okay, and that's where folks will electronically sign. Once we receive both signatures, we will notify finance, and that's when they'll go ahead and ensure that the merit increase takes place. Here's just a recap, sort of just more of a simple view of all of what I just shared with you all. So this obviously is going to take over the next month or so. Now, these are ultimate hard deadlines. If for some reason you're able to expedite this with your team a lot sooner, we welcome that. Okay, so if you can knock these out much sooner, that's totally fine. We just want to let everyone know these are the hard deadlines.
But only if you're up for annual, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the performance ratings. All right, so I'm probably gonna have Candace also kind of help with this slide as well. So team members are eligible this year for a merit increase anywhere from 1% to 5% based on the overall performance review rating. As mentioned before, merit increases will be awarded to employees who consistently meet and exceed performance standards. Merit increases will not be granted to team members whose performance has been rated as unsatisfactory overall. Okay, so you all should be familiar with our rating scale, 1 through 5, 1 being unacceptable, 2 needs improvement, 3 meets expectations, 4 exceeds expectations, and 5 far exceeds expectations. For individuals who have overall average scores of 1, will not be eligible for a merit increase. And beginning at 2 may be eligible for 1%. 3 meets expectations, anywhere from 2 to 3%. Exceeds expectations 4%, and 5 far exceeds expectation is 5. So at the very most, an employee could receive a 5% increase. Candace, is there anything to add to this? More comment?
Not that I can think of. Are there any questions here?
Yeah, let's pause here and get some questions.
Yeah, so we do have some questions. First one kind of goes back to for Noah regarding the one-time discretionary stipend. He would like to know if there is when people will know if they have access to the one-time discretionary stipend. Is there a certain time of year? Team leads will be notified that there's funds for the one-time discretionary stipend.
Yeah, I believe we made that the month of May. So Q4 of the fiscal year is when those pool of funds will be determined.
Yeah, so May.
Perfect. The next question was for Jesus. He was just looking for some additional clarification on the differences between the merit pay increase and the stipends.
So the stipend is just a cherry on top, if you will, for lack of a better word. I think most for-profit organizations use the term bonus. So it's just, based on IYT's performance, what else can we do, right? To help retain our staff, to help motivate our staff, right? To help them know that we appreciate them.
Selena was wondering in regard to the recap screen we just showed right before this, is that the timeline for every month ahead of someone's anniversary with IYT? Or is that just for this one?
Yeah, that will be pretty standard. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. And then Hassani would like to know, how does someone know if they were recommended for an increase?
Sorry, was that?
How does someone know if they were recommended for an increase?
Yeah, that would happen let me go back here. That would happen in phase 4 of this. So as soon as Candace approves the recommendation from the team lead, then the team lead will be notified, and then they should be actually setting up a time to do a final review in which the recommendation will be presented to them at that time.
That is it for chat questions.
And then really quick, we notify that team member at phase 4 or phase 5?
Phase 4.
Phase 4 says that they received it or that they're recommended. I was looking at phase 2 where it says submit their final review and recommendations to this form. And so my question was really kind of, is it around here that the person gets notified at least that they were recommended, or is that not how that is supposed to go?
Yeah, your team lead is going to be the one to communicate if you received a merit increase. So that happens phase 4.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily going to say, oh, I recommended to HR that they increase your salary by 3%. You would only say you have earned a 3% increase, because at that point it has already been approved.
Does that answer your question, Hassani?
Yes, if you're confirming what Sydney just said, then yes.
Yes, yeah.
Just to confirm and for clarification, Renee, could you please go back to the, I think it was slide 15?
Yep.
So the qualifying merit increase, if I understood, Cindy said that's what you are eligible for, what you've earned. But if I'm not mistaken, and Candace, this might be your field as well, it's still based on the budget for the upcoming year as well. So say, for example, your team lead, you have several people who meet, exceed, or far exceed expectations. They are eligible for 2, 4, or 5%. However, the budget. may
Yeah,
not
the
warrant
budget
us-
takes into account 5%.
Okay, okay. So if they meet that overall rating, I guess my question is, should teams or should members or employees feel that they more than likely get that merit increase if they've met that?
Yes,
minimum? Okay,
yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions before we move on?
Good to have some clear structure.
How's the difference between 2% and 3% decided? They're the same. If they earn 3.
Yeah, we kind of created this range because it meets expectations. I also think, it's not always black and white, especially given a year where there may be some things that are out of our control. Right, so we want to kind of give that a little bit of wiggle room in that area.
Yeah, so
I,
from my view, I'm gonna be leaning pretty hard on the team lead's recommendation.
Yeah.
From my.
Sydney, was that
I
you?
have a question, and I know that this should be, like, I feel like I know what the answer is, but I also feel like other people are gonna have this question. So you mentioned that team members will complete a self-performance review, essentially, and the team lead will also complete a performance review. What happens if the team members' self-review does not line up with the team lead's review of that team member?
Yeah, that's when me and you are probably gonna have a pretty long conversation. So again, things aren't always black and white. And so we anticipate that there's going to be instances where that happens. And so you'll work with HR, right? And that's why we want them to do their own self-review first, so that as a team lead, you kind of can feel, get a pulse check, right? And if there are discrepancies, that you'll work with HR to kind of figure out, so where is sort of the middle ground here? Or, there may be some strong opinions about, no, this person did not meet their expectations. This is, again, we're gonna rely on team leads that you've done your due diligence, right? To have these conversations throughout the year. The worst thing is that you come to a review and you get feedback that you've never heard. You've never received a warning, you never received a heads up, right? And there may be instances, honestly, that will come to that point where like, that employee was clueless, right? And so we want to make sure that things are fair, right? And also that us as leaders have done our due diligence, right? To also prepare our team members, right? For these reviews well in advance, right? And so I know this is the first time that we have structure to it. And so this first go at it might feel a little, it's gonna feel a little weird for a lot of folks, right? And so we know that. But I would encourage you, Sydney, and others, if that is the case, that you just reach out to me, and then we'll set up some time to figure out sort of what's the correct course of action. Cool. All right. All right, final part of this training is documentation. So we are no longer going to use the performance tab in Bamboo HR, as it does not meet our performance review rating scale, right? That's not set up for what we're trying to do here. So rather, team leads will need to transfer your goals and your mid-year reviews onto the updated template, which we will be using for this upcoming year. Again, this document will be saved and signed on Bamboo HR once it is electronically signed by both parties, which is at the very tail end of this whole process in order to finalize everything. And then there's further instructions noted on this template. Again, I'm more than happy to get feedback on this template. Again, this is the first time we're using it. I've kind of used pieces of what was in existence and also some of the tools that we use the CV, just to kind of put this together so that we can consolidate mid-year and end of the year reviews on one document, so that we have a history that we can look at and make educated decisions on, whether an individual warrants a merit increase or not. All right, so you're looking at the performance review template. The first few pages are really just sort of a summarization of the purpose of this performance review tool. There's a summary of each section, and then there's also some action items for individuals to do per their assigned section. And so there's 4 components. There's a team member self-review. There's a team lead review and recommendation. There's a final performance review, which is the meeting. And then the 4th is the submission of final documentation of the signed performance review to HR. Okay, no merit increases will take place without this document signed. Okay. So as a team member, which is the first phase, the self-review basically is rating yourself on the 7 competencies. Which actually this is collaboration with this edit right here. 7 competencies, which we all should be familiar with, is leadership, functional knowledge and skills, problem solving, consistency / reliability, taking initiative, collaboration, and communication. Okay, so all of our team members, even our mentor fellows, right, are rated in these 7 competencies. In addition, each team member has their specific goals pertinent to their goal, which you will be evaluated on. Okay. So in this section for the team member self-review, you're basically going to complete sections 1 and 2 in the mid-year and end of year performance review. And there's an actual column which will direct the team member to do their self-review. And then they'll be able to include comments justifying their ratings. Once they have completed their sections, they will send it to the team lead, and now the team lead is going to do their review. Same steps. We'll review them on each core competency and each of their goals. And then there are some final steps at the very end of this review that the team lead will have to complete before they send it to HR. Once the review is done, as mentioned, you'll upload it to this monday.com form, and then we'll receive it, and then we'll go into approval process. So you receive the thumbs up, everything looks great, team lead and the team member have filled out their sections, you provided a recommendation, we said you're approved, now you're going to meet with your team member and have your final performance review. This is the actual meeting, okay? Once the recommendation is approved, I just went over that. Oh, so we just want to ask that you just make sure that you set enough time to do this, right? This is, a lot of folks are, coming to their end of year review. Folks get nervous, right? When it's like, it's time to like assess how I've done. It's natural for, it's going to happen. So I encourage all team leads just set ample time to have that end of year review with them, at least 45 to 60 minutes. Ensure that you're in a place of privacy. I would encourage you to maybe even go out of the office, go offsite, do it, have lunch or something and then have it there. It's just, we want to be mindful. Yeah, we want to be mindful of our team members. And when we're sharing, our final assessments, and then also providing that final recommendation for their merits. Cindy kind of mentioned this too, there may be disagreement between you and the team member and how they might perceive themselves. This is important both for areas where you feel the team member is doing better. Sometimes folks may not, give themselves credit, right? You as a team lead should really be having a conversation, right? And using clear examples of how they've excelled. And then we have some folks that might think, I did wonderful, right? I met my goal. And you might think, not really, right? And so as a team lead, it's super important that you have very objective examples, right? And so that's what we're gonna be looking at in the approval process, is just looking at your comments and your notes. Do you have documentation? Have they met their goals, right? Because we wanna be able to justify why someone was not granted a merit increase and why they were. And so we're relying heavily on team leads to provide us that feedback. Give examples, be flexible. If there's really strong disagreement regarding a particular competency or a goal, we're gonna, again, please consult with HR. We're more than happy if you feel like you need some facilitation, for that. We're here to help you. Myself or Brandon can sit in, on a meeting, a follow-up meeting if for some reason it doesn't go the way that you had anticipated, right? Again, we want to make sure that team leads, you guys come to these meetings prepared with examples, and an opportunity just to be flexible and have conversations around each of those goals. All right, so action items here: schedule a conversation with the team member, discuss competencies and agree on how to move forward, and input the final ratings or comments. Once that is done, assuming both parties will sign the document, you'll let us know and submit the final documentation. Actually, HR will send the documentation via Bamboo HR and we'll await those signatures. Now, again, during that time, after you've done your final review, if there are issues, right, that's where I'm gonna ask that team leads that you notify myself or Brandon right away. All right, I'm gonna stop right here before I just kind of show you just the visual of the performance review. Any questions?
Hassani did have one, which I believe we're about to get into, which is, will team leads be able to see the employees' review before they complete their portion?
I'm sorry, I said that, will team leads be able to see the employees version?
Yes.
Yes.
Before they complete.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's phase one. Yeah, phase one, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm probably stating the obvious, Renee, but obviously Michael Casper isn't here, but I'm assuming since we're coming up on phase one right away, that Michael Casper will be sitting in with me to do my team.
Yes,
review.
yes.
Right, in case anyone else on my team was wondering, so.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's all you, Demetrius.
What I've seen in the first 2 minutes, all right.
All right, so here's the actual performance review. Again, it looks very familiar to you all. Here's the rubric. Section 1 is the core competencies. There's an evaluation area, comments, and then there's two columns here. One is reserved for the team member, the employee. Here's the self-review rating. Simply, they'll just enter in their mid-year rating and their end-of-year rating for each of these competencies. The team lead will also do the same in their column. So forth. Keep going until you finish all 7 competencies. At the very end of these core competencies, we're going to ask that you do some math. So there's going to be an overall average rating. And so you're going to add the sum of your ratings and divide that by 7. That will give you an overall rating for your core competencies, right? And so if you scored 4 in all 7 core competencies, what's your average rating, Kevin? Yeah, you're the smart one.
Just qualitative.
Yeah, qualitative. Well, then it would be 4, right? So your overall rating would be 4, right? Yes, okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so you'll walk away with, team leads overall rating and self-review, employee rating will be noted here. And then section 2 is performance goals. And so we'll ask both team lead and team member work together to please make sure that you guys update your goal number 1. And then if there's any sort of sub goals or objectives, to also copy and paste those into this document. Directly here to the right, there's a section for mid-year self-review. So this first section is just for the employee. And so they will go ahead and circle or highlight their rating for the mid-year if you have it documented. I'm more worried for this fiscal year, the end of the year. Just FYI, okay, so I know that, I kind of came in March, I'm not too sure where folks are with their mid-year reviews. I am more concerned with your end of year. For some reason, it didn't happen, right? I'm not gonna penalize you for that, okay? I'm more worried for the end of year self-review. And so you'll go ahead, the employee will go ahead and rate themselves. They have 2 sections here where they'll provide a self-review. Again, if you have comments that were in Bamboo HR, that'd be a great way just to copy and paste it into these sections so that you have it documented. And then they'll also provide their end of year self-review comments. What do you put in these comments? All right, so we want to kind of just hear, like, justify your rating. I scored myself as a 3 because I was able to meet my objectives, and here's how, right? Using clear examples, right? That's, again, HR is really going to be looking at those notes. For the same goal, there will be a section for team leads to do the same. So they'll also enter in their ratings and then their comments. And then it repeats itself for every goal, right? So what I have in this template, there's at least 5 goals here. If you have more, just go ahead and just copy and paste an additional box, an additional section, okay? And hopefully you don't have more than 5. If you have more than 5, I'm gonna worry a little bit, right, around your goals, and then let's kind of like reassess with your team lead if that makes sense. All right. Here's the recommendation portion, important. So this is to be completed by the team lead. So you are going to add up your total ratings from section 1, which is your core competencies, and section 2, which is each goal. For each of your goals, you are also going to have an average rating. If, say, there were sub goals and objectives pertaining to that goal, okay? And so pretty much the same math that you did with core competencies. If a goal breaks down into 3 or 4 of those goals, sub goals, and you each gave them a rating, you're going to want to find the average of that so that you only walk away with 1 average goal for that goal. Okay? You're going to add the following. You're going to add the average rating from competencies. Let's just say I had a 4. And then from goal number 1, I got a 4. That was my average rating for goal number 1. Goal number 2, I had a 2. Goal number 3, I had a 3. And then goal number 4, I got a 4. My total sum is 17. Got 17 points. The total number of scores, which is the sections, right, broken down, is 5. You're going to divide the total sum by the total number of scores to come up with your overall rating and round this to the nearest 10th. So 17 divided by 5, it's 3.4. My overall end of year rating would be a 3.0. Which means that I met expectations on nearly all of my goals. Okay. I've included a worksheet here for you all to help you, do the math here. Once that's determined, then you're going to have a final overall end of year rating, which you're going to enter into this section here. And then you're going to provide a recommended merit increase, which I'm going to explain really quick. You all saw that rubric in my slides, but I've also included it here. And then you'll have a final review and recommendation comments here. This is where you will basically summarize. I think my team member did a fabulous job this year. They've met next expectations, flying colors. I would like to recommend them for a 3.0 merit increase. And then here's the rubric to help guide you. And then the very end of this review is that we ask for signatures. There's a mid-year review signature section, and then there's an end of year review section. Again, I'm more worried about the end of year review sign off. All right. I know that was a lot. Again, we are here to support you all through this process, so please don't hesitate to ask questions or to shoot me an email. I'm just going to open it up for questions.
Sydney asked, since we did quarterly reviews on Bamboo, not a single mid-year review, should we use the combined reviews as a mid-year review or just use the most recent one?
Yes.
And to follow up, going forward, will the quarterly reviews be discontinued in favor of the mid-year?
Yes.
So, go you first.
If I have people coming up on a mid-year review, I'm just calculating in my head. Am I supposed to know that, or is HR prompting me on that? Okay.
we'll let you know.
What if, like, for myself personally, like, what if you didn't receive a mid-year review? I'm not too familiar with the quarterly reviews and stuff that we're doing in Bamboo. I don't think you got scored, like, those are stuff you were writing, typing out. Yeah, it was school. So, like, what do we do in that instance? We just, like you said, cross out the mid-year and just do.
Yeah, so consider this as a sort of, this is a reset for it, just because the whole structure prior to that honestly didn't meet the needs of where we're trying to go with this. I will say that after this, after we close this fiscal year, we're gonna start back right up with this exact process. And so this performance review, I'm actually gonna, after the dust settles with all the reviews, you're gonna expect from HR sort of a rollout to make sure that you have performance reviews ready to go by the end of September for each of your team members, so that we can get them back on a mid-year and end of year track,
Oh, everybody on the same track, or not?
depending on, yeah, there's some nuances there, right? It depends on where you're at. So HR is doing a lot of heavy lifting and just determining where do folks come up. We want to make sure it's equitable. We want to make sure that folks, you'll get a notification, hey, your team members due for a mid-year. Right, and so I would say if you have new members that are joining your team, for a lot of you have, within those first 30 days, they need to have a performance review in place. Right, just so that you can, fairly be able to give a mid-year at the end of year. We haven't been doing that. Right, and so, we're gonna quickly sort of pivot after this, close out this year and get everyone at least wherever they're at, right? Get them a performance review on file.
Sorry, I think you were next. So Noah was wondering if this is separate, but do we do cost of living adjustment to salaries, or are we just doing the performance reviews?
We're just doing the performance reviews.
Sydney also asked, does that mean that mid-year reviews will be conducted in December, January, mid-fiscal year? I believe it's August, September. August, September. Selena was wondering, she's trying to understand how goals will be evaluated, especially for those of us whose jobs have changed and goals have changed. She's assuming that's not just her. And Noah, to tack onto that, says also our annual goals this year were the first annual goals we ever set. I'm wondering if we need to take that into account.
Annual goals from the performance review?
I believe so.
When he says annual goals in terms of organizational goals or?
Noah?
No, I can answer that. Our performance goals, our department goals.
Department goals, not your,
Those-
not your individual goals.
Well, team leads, well, that gets fuzzy because team leads, I'll just speak on behalf of myself. My goals are the department goals.
Okay,
Yeah, and my goals are the department goals as well, but because I cover 2 different regions, I kind of split those for my team members. So like the department goals for Sacramento, I gave to Andrew, and the department goals for the Central Valley, I gave to Francisco.
yeah. So this is what I will say. This is where you need to work with your team lead, right? So with your end of year review, you want to make sure that you give yourself credit for, especially if there are changes in your goals, all of that needs to be noted here, right? So this document is a living, breathing tool, right? It's, you may have started out this year with a whole different set of marching orders, and then maybe midway through the year, switch. That's a conversation that you and your team lead should have. When this gets submitted to HR, we're just gonna wanna make sure that there's an agreement between you and your team lead about what you're being assessed on. Okay? And this is the importance of starting off the year, especially with new hires, that first 30 days of just making sure that you have a performance review, at least as a foundation, right, to work off of. It's really hard to do evaluations if there isn't, right, if there isn't anything documented at the very beginning of your employment. But for this round, please have a conversation with your team lead and just making sure that you're on the same page around what were my goals. They may have changed. Make sure that you note that in your review, just so that we have a clear picture. Any other questions?
And more just a comment. So, I strongly believe in like the leadership philosophy is as IYT vote rises, so as everybody else vote rises. And so, with growth has enabled us to do different, create different opportunities, raise sort of salary ranges and provide opportunities. Even I think it was last year we did like the 5% for all of our team. I know that the last year, the year before, but like our budget and our revenue is critical to how we do this. And you all know like our 3 buckets of where we get our money, like 3 big buckets. Where we get our money from, there's 3 buckets. What are those 3 buckets? Who knows? Grants, yeah, number 1, and grants, what else?
Payments for service from
Yeah, some
school.
contracts. What's the 3rd one?
Fundraising.
Yes, our Power of Us campaign. So any of those buckets drop or like don't meet goal, then that sort of throws off all of our ability to provide merit or even incentive stipends. So like if we lose contracts, that hurts our ability to provide merit increases and like the incentive stipends. What growth allows us is often, especially because 40% of our revenue comes from contracts, that allows for discretionary dollars to be able to make sure that we can provide, both sort of avenues where, we all can, raise our standard of living. But like if there's like if those 3 things that are our Power of Us campaign, we'll raise about $1 million in our Power of Us campaign from 3 different regions. So like when we have events, the development directors will host events to be able to raise money. So if team members aren't, like contributing and practicing a culture of philanthropy, a part of that Power of Us campaign, which is unrestricted dollars for us to use forward, then we won't, meet goals. So guess what I'm trying to say is that this is a complete team effort. When we grow, the plan is everybody, they want to eat better. But if we don't grow or we have constrictions, like that hurts our ability to increase the standard of living for our team.
Thank you. Any other questions?
2.
Yes.
So when it comes to doing the averages for the core competencies, we have the mid-year and the end of year. Would they just be doing the average of the end of year or taking the mid-year and end of year and averaging it all?
Yeah, the mid-year really is a pulse check. Right, that's like, let's just make sure that we're on the same page, right? If there's areas of growth, right? But we are really gonna base it off of that end of year final review.
Perfect. And then the second question was in regards to the goals just being listed and stuff. Would those kind of be set during the mid-year review, I'm assuming? Or are those just kind of set from the get-go and everything and just kind of the goals that we already kind of have in place?
The goal should be set at the beginning of the year.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. And then it looks like Sydney has a question as well.
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask, like, how do you advise taking into account major work that was done that was not directly a part of the goal? So for example, we have department goals, right? Francisco spent a lot of time this year working on launching the Northern Central Valley 1300 campaign, but launching the Central Valley campaign is not one of his 3 goals, because that's not one of the 3 department goals for this year. So that was a lot of work and he did do it, but it doesn't like directly translate to a department goal that he was given at the beginning of the year. So how do you assess something like that? Like, I mean, he still did work, but it's not reflected in the goals that were given.
Yeah, like, as I mentioned, I think you're always gonna start out with your goals at the beginning of the year. at that, and maybe have misunderstood your question about the mid-year, but yeah, you should be making adjustments, right, through that mid-year, I may have misunderstood, through that mid-year review. Now that we've come to the end of the year, again, I'm gonna still ask that you do that, right? So if there were adjustments that were made, as I mentioned, you have to work with your team lead to ensure that if there are any sort of major changes to your role or to your goals, that you give yourself credit there and that you're assessing based off of what is true. Does that make sense? I wish I can give you like a very direct, but I think it's all gonna be very dependent on that conversation with you and your team lead.
And then I also, well, for me personally, because I did a lot of stuff, I add that to my, those core competency areas, like leadership. I show leadership in this area or something. Is that appropriate?
Yes,
Oh.
yeah. And this is also data for us, but with people and culture, right? And so, again, more than you, most of us have been here in less than a year in our role, new roles that were created, right? No one's ever stepped into these roles, right? Right? And so, again, this is where I ask for a little bit of grace, not only for the team that's like helping to push this forward, but for yourself as well, right? And also team leads, just going, oh, I can look at, Michaela's performance review and be like, oh, she had like 5 different things that weren't there at the beginning of the year. That's a conversation, right, that we can have with team leads and department heads about what is really true for this role moving forward, right? So we need that data, right, to like make really good decisions about, especially staffing, about what's realistic, et cetera. So I know that for this year, it's been a lot of pivoting and a lot of adjustment, but I want to make sure that you guys give yourselves credit, be true and transparent about that work in this review, because it's only going to help us get better.
And it's funny, everybody's role was brand new except Chris and the Sonics from a year ago. So, like that's some kudos just to the exceptional people we hired to be able, not only to, to get leadership, but to grow and get better. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. It is 11 a.m. We are ending 1 hour. I put 2 hours just in case, but I will give to you all back an hour of your time. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact myself, Candace, or even Brandon. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, HR team and Candace, thank you all.
Send this PowerPoint